and videos turned off, we would still love to hear from you. So please use the chat box at the right of your screens to post any questions that you have as we go through. So over the last year, 132,560 people started an apprenticeship, and that's a figure that is rising year on year. Our aim for this evening is to provide you with some key information that will support you to have further discussions with your sons, daughters, family members on whether an apprenticeship is the right next step, and join that growing number of new apprentices. We'll also look at what employers will be looking for in potential candidates and how you can support your child to find an apprenticeship. I'm Leanne Weston. I'm from the Swindon and Wiltshire Careers Hub, and joining me this evening is Shona Taylor, Employer Engagement Manager at UCAS, and Oriel Chandarana, Operations Manager at Enterprise Works in Swindon. And I'll also be joined by Rachel Gear from the apprenticeship team at New College Swindon, who will be keeping an eye on the questions that you're posting in the chat. So without further ado, Shona, would you mind kicking us off with a short introduction of your role within the apprenticeship world?
Yes, thanks, Leanne. So as Leanne said, my name is Shona Taylor and I am a Business Engagement Manager with the UCAS Apprenticeship team. Now, you might already be aware of UCAS in terms of your application service to access university or get onto an undergraduate course. We've broadened that out in recent years, and we're now looking at promoting apprenticeship and technical education. So I'm going to be talking tonight about all the best routes on how to get into an apprenticeship, because we are seeing more and more apprenticeships coming on every day. So yeah, that's what I'll be talking about.
And Shona, could you start off the chat with telling us about what an apprenticeship is and what an apprentice is?
Okay, yes. So an apprenticeship, in short, is a job which comes with hands-on work experience and training. So the key to remember when you're looking at an apprenticeship is it is actually a job, as opposed to being any sort of internship, work experience, graduate placement. This is employment. And therefore, apprentices get treated as if they are employees in a business, because that's what the role is. So they will come and work every day. So you hit the ground running, you are working from day one, you're part of the team, you get involved in projects and activities alongside everyone else. The difference between doing an apprenticeship and doing any other sort of training is you get paid to be an apprentice, but that also means that you will get annual leave every year. And if anything happens, you'll get sick pay alongside, and there are lots of other benefits that you'll get from the employer as being an ongoing employee of their company.
Thank you, Shona. That's fantastic. And what can an apprentice expect in terms of the work-study balance?
Yes. So as we say, an apprenticeship is a job that comes with training. So apprentices are usually employed full-time. There are occasions when you can do an apprenticeship part-time, but the vast majority will be full-time. And that means that you'll work equivalent of 35 to 40 hours a week. That differs between employers, so it's a good one to check. So when it comes to the work and study split, we're looking at 80% of the time in the job role, working alongside peers and colleagues and learning on the job, and 20% of the time is spent studying. Now, that 80-20 split does break down to approximately 1 day a week of study and 4 days a week of working, but it's not always that straightforward. So sometimes you will have a day a week and you'll go to your training provider, a college or a university, and do your study part. Other courses, depending on the option that you choose, you will be doing block release or virtual study sessions, or sometimes you'll do some training within your job role with your employer. So bearing in mind, it's roughly 1 day a week that you get to study, but all of those options will be slightly different.
Thank you, Shona. And so for most of our students, they'll be aiming to come out of secondary school with a level 2 qualification, GCSEs. What levels can an apprenticeship be? What can they start at?
So apprentices, at the moment, apprenticeships run from level 2, which is GCSE, through level 3, which is A level and T level, through levels 4 and 5, which is the foundation degree, HNC, HND, and then up to level 6, 7, which is a degree with honours or a master's level equivalent. So that's a degree apprenticeship. It's not always that a young person will finish the GCSEs level, and then they might do their A level and T level and go straight to a degree apprenticeship. Sometimes you see employers requesting apprentices at level 3, so they want to get them into their business, get them settled, get them doing the job, show that it's the right job for them, the right apprenticeship. They'll complete a level 3, and then they'll move up and work their way through different apprenticeship levels. On the other hand, some young people do go straight in, and they'll finish their level 3, their A level, the T level, and go straight into a degree apprenticeship and work their way straight up to level 7. So there are a wide range of apprenticeships, and the recommendation I would give to parents and young people is have a look at all the levels. It doesn't mean that you are doing the right thing or the wrong thing by starting at a particular level. So you've got plenty of choice and flexibility. And some of the audience may have heard that government is talking about having a foundation apprenticeship, which will come in before level 2 and give some young people a really good starting point. Don't quite know what that looks like yet, but as soon as we have that information, we'll be starting to share it.
Thank you, Shona. And I think it's also interesting to think about as well that an apprenticeship at level 3 is the equivalent to a T level or a BTEC that you were level 3 that you would do at college. There's no lesser, or they are exactly equivalent.
And the thing to remember is the apprenticeship is a vehicle to achieve your training. It isn't, you don't come out with an apprenticeship, you come out with a level 3 qualification, or you come out with a degree, an undergraduate degree with honours, just like you would if you'd gone to university. There is no difference in the actual piece of paper you get at the end of the day.
That's it, exactly that. And Shona, what type of sectors take on apprentices?
So there are 600 plus different apprenticeship standards available. So the apprenticeship standard is the apprenticeship that you will take. That's what we call them. And they cover 18 of the different sectors. So there's a wide range of options for young people. So you can do everything from business admin, law and legal services, construction, digital IT, health and science. There is a huge range. So to give you an idea of some of the different ones, we have in digital and IT, there's a growth in cyber security apprenticeships at the moment. So you wouldn't be surprised if you watch the news of the need for cyber security. That's a growth area. In health and science, we've got apprenticeships such as I'm stumbling over my words here. The NHS in September launched the first doctor's apprenticeship. So you can become a doctor by being an apprentice, and that's a huge step forward. But last February, just under a year ago, government launched an apprenticeship, which was to allow people to qualify as teachers. So you can really be an apprentice in almost anything. And my favourite apprenticeship is the assistant puppet maker. I think that looks like a great option. It just shows you the range.
Fancy a career change, Shona. That's it. And thank you for talking about labour market information as well, and those sectors that are kind of growing. That's really interesting. Really interesting to know.
So we do have a quick question, if that's all right. Obviously, we'll talk more in depth about apprenticeships and how you prepare for them and how you undergo them. But a question that's come in is, what happens if you start an apprenticeship but you don't enjoy the course? What are your options then?
So that is a bit of a tricky one. So that would be a situation where you'd have to talk to your training provider and you'd have to talk to your employer and work out, is the course not maybe matching what you're doing in the job role? And is that why you're struggling? Or is it the subject? And it might be that the employer would help you to maybe change job role if that was suitable, or the training provider might know of a better fitting course. I mean, you'd have to obviously leave the apprenticeship and therefore leave the job, but and then go and secure a new apprenticeship. So that would be a tricky situation. But I think as soon as you thought you had any concerns about your position within an apprenticeship, if you weren't enjoying it, it would be to talk to the tutors on the course, talk to the training provider and the mentor, and talk to the employer, because it just might be that it's a settling in situation.
Yeah,
hopefully that answers it.
That's good advice. Thank you.
Excellent advice. Thanks ever so much. So the next question is, so I know that my children are always talking about how much money will I earn if I do that job, Mum. So what sort of wages can apprentices expect to start on?
So I can give you some good news on that. So apprentices are paid the national minimum wage. As a minimum, they get the national minimum wage. Some of our employers that we work with actually pay more than this. But again, this is about the research that young people need to do to dig into the detail before they apply for an apprenticeship. But if you are 16 to 18 years old and you're currently an apprentice, the minimum wage is £6.40 an hour. And that will go up to £7.55 in April, which is only a few weeks away. If you are 18 to 20 years old, the current minimum wage is £8.60. And again, that will rise in April to £10 an hour. And the average, this is slightly dated, so it will probably be slightly more than that at the moment. But the average salary for an apprentice completing their degree apprenticeship, so they're at that higher level qualification, is the salary that they can expect to be on average in the UK is £32,502, which is a good salary.
That's a really good salary.
The other thing to remember when you are thinking about an apprenticeship is there are no student loan fees. So you'll earn during that 2, 3, 4 year journey, and at the end of it, you could be earning 32,000.
Gosh, that's really good, isn't it? And Shona, where can young people find information about apprenticeship opportunities?
So I'd like to say there's one place, but there's lots of places, and that's quite good to fit your own learning differences and how you like to find information. But there is vacancies are advertised on the government's Find an Apprenticeship, the .gov website. But UCAS also have a platform which showcases all of the vacancies. So we pull our information through from the .gov website, and then we have some employers who choose to only upload with us. So we have a few more. And then the other places to keep an eye on are employers' own websites, so anywhere that you're interested in going to work. And then keeping an eye on training providers such as New College, who are hosting this event. They advertise and they have vacancies as well. So that there's not just one place, unfortunately, but having a look around, and there's plenty of places. And in a minute, I'll post a couple of the links that I've mentioned into the chat so people can have a look.
Thank you, Shona. This has been really, really helpful. If a parent carer wanted to go away from this and find out more information on apprenticeships, where could they start looking?
So I would say the UCAS site. We've spent quite some time promoting information, advice and guidance, resources and links. So there's links for parents and carers on there. There's podcasts and things that they can access themselves. And then we've got information for students directly. So any student that's on the call or listens to the recording afterwards can set up a UCAS hub account for themselves. You can do it through your school and college, and it's always worth checking with them when you're going to do it. But we would say you can do it from year 10, and that way you will keep up to date with us and get information. But we also have lots of resources that you can just download straight away for yourself and access without an account. So we have employer profiles, we have sector and industry guides, we have virtual work experience that students can do straight away on their own. So half term's coming up. If anybody wants to do some virtual work experience, it's great on a CV. We've just launched a module called CV Builder, and it pulls together all the information. If you have an account that you've given us, you can put in all your qualifications and then download a CV. We've got lots of resources around that. Particularly next week, when it's National Apprenticeship Week, we will have lots of apprenticeship podcasts. So if students want to keep an eye on our website, we've got lots of information next week, and they're all recorded and easily accessible. And then the last thing I'll mention is our UCAS Careers Quiz. It's a set of questions that you answer about your likes and dislikes and preferences, and then we give you some suggested careers. And it helps anyone who thinks, I want to work in medicine, or I want to work in marketing, or want to work in business, and I just don't know what it is. The quiz will help take them along a journey and through a route, and really is quite accurate. So the careers quiz is a good one to do as well.
Thank you, Shona. And Shona, you'll post the link to the UCAS website in the chat.
I will. Yeah, I've got it here. I'll post it now.
Thank you so much. Rachel, is there any more questions?
No questions just yet, but can I please plug our Apprenticefest event next Tuesday?
Yes.
So New College Swindon are hosting Apprenticefest at Steam Museum on Tuesday, the 11th of Feb. We've got school groups coming in the day, and then from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. it's a twilight session that's open to members of the public. So you're very welcome to come along. I will post the link to Eventbrite tickets, which are free, in the chat. And we will have 40 employers of all shapes and sizes to talk to you about their vacancies. They'll even have their own apprentices there to talk to you about their experiences, and it'll be a really good one-stop shop for any advice for anybody considering an apprenticeship.
Absolutely, yeah, and I concur. Please do get your free tickets to that twilight session for Apprenticefest. We've been running it for some years now, quite a few years, and every year the feedback just gets better and better.
Yes.
And students really enjoy it, parents really enjoy it. So yeah, please do book your tickets. It'd be great to see some of you there. So joining us next to help provide some insight from an employer's perspective is Oriel Chandarana. Oriel, would you mind starting us off by providing a short introduction to your role and how the site that you run involves apprenticeships?
So hi, my name's Oriel, as Leanne said. I am the operations manager for Enterprise Works in Swindon. So we run a timber and fencing workshop and yard. So we provide a lot of bespoke products, timber products and so forth to, customers as well as traders. So we have a bit of both. And we actually have our very own fencing team, of which are a team of 4. And we have 2 apprentices within that team. And hopefully next year we'll be having another couple of apprentices in carpentry as well. So very much trying to upskill some of the young people into that, because it is quite an aging workforce as well within the industry. So been doing that for a while now.
Thank you, Oriel. And would you start off by kind of giving us some insight into what an employer is looking for from a potential apprentice in terms of the skills and experiences and qualifications that they come to you with?
So I think that can be really personalized with a lot of different companies in terms of what they want and what, as an employer they need to see. But, from all the different roles that I've been in the past, and especially this role that I'm in at the moment as a manager, my main one is that their work experiences that they've had. And it doesn't have to be that they've gone on an actual work experience. It could be also experiences that they've had. So, they've been in a football team and worked as part of a team, or they've helped lead and manage that team. So a lot of it is the experiences that they've had and, their attitude going forward, what they want to achieve, what they want to get out of all of the experiences that they will have during that apprenticeship. So for me, skills can be taught, qualifications can be gained while they're on site with us and learning those different roles that they've come on as an apprentice to do. But it's that attitude that we want to see that, will make them want to carry on doing the job and keep doing the job and doing it well. I think that for us at Enterprise is our biggest plus sign, I suppose, or plus point for applying for an apprenticeship.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Oriel. It's not just about work experience and the skills that you've got, it's about your life experiences as well that kind of shapes you as a person and, can perhaps put you above the pile of potential apprenticeships.
Definitely.
So with you and kind of with the other experiences that you've had in perhaps previous roles, how can an organisation ask an apprenticeship to apply? What's the process?
So we've been lucky enough to be supported by Swindon Borough Council. So it comes as a really big, we have a big employment background behind us. So a lot of our apprenticeships do go onto the government website, and they also go on to our intranet sites as well. So going on to our recruitment and looking for careers within the council, we've managed to get those up. So I'd always say check with the companies that you're interested for the roles that you're possibly interested in, and do some research on those, because a lot of companies do it in-house. They get it up there and they advertise for those roles, and sometimes it's not as quick going onto the government website, but then you also get loads of that. And actually a brilliant advocate for us has always been the college. So whenever we've got roles, we go straight to the college, we say, look at what we've got, and they advertise them internally for us or externally, but for all their students. So there's loads of different sites, loads of different routes for them to apply. It's just making sure you research. And I actually wouldn't ever put it past a young person, if you're really interested in a company and what they do, and if it's something you're interested in, asking as well, or handing in a CV or sending an email, because you never know, that company might actually want to have an apprentice, just doesn't know how to start or get there. And normally if you do that, you can always go to the college and they can help you with that process. So it kind of is lots of different routes.
Yeah, thank you. That is so true. I guess it's down to the employer, isn't it? And it's their own processes that are already in place. So it could be an application form, it could be a CV. So definitely get onto that CV builder, because I think that will help any young person that's looking at just writing a CV for the first time. And is there any funding or support for a young person that might have additional needs?
So as an employer, we actually have access to funding that can help young people with additional needs. It's also an employer's statutory duty to support somebody with those needs and to be able to help them. So we would always use, for example, DWP, which is Department of Work and Pensions, who actually support us with access to work. So if, for example, one of my young people has dyslexia, and they've helped support us with getting assessments for him to be done. So there is funding. The employer should know about it, but if they don't, there is support for an employer as well to find out more about it, and you can raise awareness. So yeah, it's one of those statutory duties that especially large employers are able to support with. It's just a matter of making sure that you as a student, when you apply for the job, let that employer know, so they can make sure that the right things are put in place for when you start. So you do love that apprenticeship and you don't feel overwhelmed or feel like you don't like it and you can't do it.
Lots of support out there, and that's so true, Oriel, to be kind of upfront about any support that a young person might need from the off, so that, as you say, they can be great as an apprentice and do really well.
Definitely.
So what can a young person do? Say they're in year 10, 11, and their next step is perhaps going to be an apprenticeship. What could they start to do to prepare for being an apprentice?
Well, I think one of the first things is actually, thinking a little bit about what you want to do. Speak to your tutors or your teachers about careers advice and guidance to make sure that you're on the right path, or you're looking at the things that you'd want to do. And actually looking at what roles are out there sooner rather than later. Yes, you're in year 10 and you don't need to get an apprenticeship for another couple of years, but if you start researching a little bit about what is out there, it will give you an idea of what you want, and work your way backwards. So I want to be an engineer. Okay, so what do you need in year 10 to get to that point? And can you do it at a level 2 or a level 3, or, find out those opportunities and options. And then I suppose as you move into preparing as well, is find out about those employability skills you need, also those soft skills. You've got to be at college at 9 a.m. for your first lesson. It's the same principle with work. And, just remembering that you will also be juggling your normal work that you're expected to do, but also your apprenticeship, because it is a lot. It helps that you don't have to pay the university fees and those kinds of things, but it is two big, massive chunks that you have to learn how to juggle. Because you do get time off, you do get your 6 hours where you're able to do some work and you are able to study outside of work, but sometimes you need to do just that little bit extra. So it's making sure you find the time to do that, because you've still got your other 30 odd hours that you'd need to do doing your job that you're being paid to do. So there's lots of little things that you can prepare for, but it's just bearing in mind all those little bits that go in between.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. And I suppose one of the reasons that somebody might consider becoming an apprentice is that they want to have less time in the classroom. So they want to get out of school. They don't necessarily like the classroom and that learning environment, and they want to be kind of hands-on in the job and learn from somebody else. Are your employees that are apprentices, are they classed as a member of staff, or are they classed as kind of a learner and a student?
No, so mine are definitely classed as a member of staff. They come in like every other member of staff. They've got a job to do like every other member of staff. They are never indoors sitting at a desk. Well, they might be once every 6 weeks for about 4 hours, but most of that time, most of the other days that they're in, they're always out. So they're fencing apprentices. They are on site or off site most of the time. They have a manager with them to help coach them and support them in learning how to do things, but it's very much a hands-on role. And as a member of staff, they're expected to learn and pick up a role and understand a role and then do that role, which is exactly what you would be doing. It's just not in a classroom setting. It's on an off-site setting in loads of multiple different types of sites and times and so forth. So it is really good for them to understand the differences. But when they do come into a classroom setting, they do have to sit down, pay attention and do that, though it's not, for more than 4 hours at a time or for every 6 weeks. So it is very dependent. And also, I think it's quite good that with a member of staff, like any member of staff, we like to treat individual member of staff in their own right. So individually, we know what they can and can't do. If you can't sit down and stay sitting for hours and hours and hours, we'll make alternative arrangements to make sure that we get the best out of them, but they also get the best out of their role. So it is also on us as an employer to make sure we're doing what's right for that person as well. So it is two ways.
Yeah, it sounds like a really great option for those visual learners amongst us, those that maybe don't kind of remember things from just reading a book, but actually to be shown something. It sounds like a really good option for as I say, visual learners. And Oriel, what is the length of an apprenticeship? What could the lengths be of different apprenticeships?
Well, I mean, within the council, so I've got another apprentice who's doing business admin, and actually that apprenticeship is a 12-month apprenticeship. So he's had to do quite a fair amount of work, learning different roles within customer services and going around to different departments to see what the different types of roles are. So I'd say anything from 12 months and upwards. It depends on the apprenticeship you're actually taking on board. So my fencing apprentices are currently doing a level 2, and theirs will be a 2-year program. But we're hoping if they want to go on to further their education with us, they'll be an upskilled apprentice, but they'll be then probably doing at least another year with us. So that would take it up to 3 years. So it really does depend on the apprenticeship you'll be doing, but it also depends on the employer you'll be working with. I think there's quite a lot of different options that you can do.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good advice. Thank you. And what progression opportunities are there after completing an apprenticeship?
Well, I think most employers take on apprentices, one, to support the business, but the hope is that we're training somebody who'd be able to take on that role when they're done. So when they've completed their apprenticeship. So the hope is that for our apprentices anyway, once they've completed their apprenticeships, we can offer them permanent positions within the company, because we've invested time, we've invested money, we've invested everything for them to progress, learn, and actually become a skilled person for us. So I think that in terms of progression, it is then to get them to pass that apprenticeship, become employees, and then actually find those different progression routes within the area or within that skill set that they've qualified for.
And I think as well, because you've done an apprenticeship with one organisation, that doesn't mean that you have to stay there afterwards for a certain amount of time. You can take that qualification and then move to a different organisation if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, of course, definitely. We've got a few young apprentices that have come through the council who have started off as housing, and they've done their qualification with us and moved on to different housing companies within the industry. And it depends on the young person. It can be anything from salary or location and stuff like that. But they've moved on. There's quite a lot of them that have moved on, and they've moved with the qualification, which is a bonus, because that will help them with their what they want to do after.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's obviously great news that we've got lots more employers that are thinking about and taking on apprentices. But I think there is this myth that maybe an apprenticeship is something that's quite easy to come by, whereas maybe it's not, and it is still quite difficult to kind of be that person that gets the apprenticeship out of a pile of maybe 100 candidates sometimes. So what advice would you give to a young person that applies for an apprenticeship but isn't successful at recruitment stage?
I would always say ask for feedback. Go back to that employer that you haven't been successful with, and ask them for their honest feedback. We had over 60 applications when we did our apprenticeship, and we only had 2 apprenticeship positions available. And there were a couple that came back and they did ask us for feedback, which was really nice, because we could tell that they wanted the opportunity, they saw the opportunity. So you can't give up. If you want something, you have to keep on applying. Just because you didn't get that role doesn't mean that it's necessarily the wrong one. But if you do get advice and support, you can look at, where you can do better for the next one, or, other opportunities as well that you might think might be more suited. So I'd always say, check on what you can't, you could do better with, get more support, or speak to, anybody that might be willing to help you with it as well.
Thank you. That's really good advice. And I think resilience is a really key one, isn't it, for going into a workplace. You must keep going, you must keep plugging at it, and eventually there will be an apprenticeship that you get, but it might take a good few applications with different organizations to get that job. Thank you, Oriel. That was really insightful. Give us some really good perspective on what an employer will be looking for in an apprentice. Rachel, did I see a question pop up?
There is a question, but I wanted to come back to your point, Leanne, about it being quite a competitive environment, trying to land that apprenticeship. And it kind of reminded me of a question that we get a lot at the college, which is, do I need to find my own employer, or is there help? My advice would be to start approaching employers much earlier than you think. The process can take up to 12 months, if I'm perfectly frank. And I do see some lovely messages sometimes on Facebook community groups where young people, or indeed there's no upper age limit on apprentices, but any kind of people will be saying, I'm looking for a carpentry company to take me on, or I'm looking for an IT business to take me on. And I always think that's really well done, and I always commend them for being proactive. I think that's a great thing to do. Sow the seed early. Use AI to get a good snapshot of what's in your area, and then start those approaches. And I just think being proactive is the way to go. There is help, of course. We have an employability team at the college that deal with work experience. And of course, my team, business development, we're talking to employers all the time. And employers will approach us with a job ad. We will help them, and then we will advertise it and then draw on our talent pool. So if you are interested in being part of that pool, you simply need to visit the New College Swindon website, register your interest for an apprenticeship. We will then speak to you, screen you, and you will go into the talent pool. So that's a really good thing to do, just to safeguard yourself as well. So there is a question. Do you need to have Maths and English GCSEs to be an apprentice?
Takers on this question.
So I think with most apprenticeships, they do ask that you have Maths and English GCSEs, if I'm not mistaken. But there are some companies out there that will take you on without Maths and English, but while you're doing your apprenticeship, you will have to still do your Maths and English alongside it. But it depends on the company, I think. But Shona, please step in.
I was just, so Oriel, that is exactly the answer I would have given. What I would say is Rachel just spoke about the competitiveness, and Oriel spoke about the competitiveness of the apprenticeship route. So what you've got to think about is, if you're an employer and you've got lots and lots of applications, if you've got some and they have got English and they have got maths, they just might make the cut. I can't speak for employers, but they just might make the cut because they're better qualified. Yeah. They've got more qualifications. So aiming as high as you can aim, I think, is the way forward with this. We do see that most employers are looking for English and maths. Not all, and some don't. So aiming as high with qualifications, if you're resitting, working as hard as you can, taking it as seriously as you can, is always a good option. And then when you make an application to an employer, if you haven't got English and maths, or you haven't quite got the qualifications that we're looking for, make contact with that employer in advance. Back to Rachel's point about young people and putting themselves out there on Facebook groups and social media groups, contacting the employer directly, talking to them about their apprenticeships, talk to them about the apprenticeships that they have coming up. And if you don't have English and maths, what are the options? Because the recruitment team may make an alternative suggestion you might not have thought about. And the opportunity for anybody who might be struggling with their English and maths at the moment, and it is a big chunk of year 11s that are in this position at the moment. Apprenticeship, coming back to that next week. It's a great time to have that informal conversation, the what ifs, and you might find that when you talk to employers, they will admit to you that when they were 16, they didn't get their English and maths either, and they had to resit, because it's not a new thing. It's been a struggle for many people for many years. So in short, you probably will need it, but it's not the end of the world if you haven't got it.
Yeah.
Exactly the answer I would have given too. And I think as well as things like Apprenticefest, it's worth looking out for employer open days. I'm seeing posters popping up locally, and I'm sure they will be doing nationally. So do go along with this. As employer you have in mind, they will want to know why you've chosen them, why you're interested in them in particular. So for example, in engineering, I was at an open day run by an employer locally, and the learner came up to me and said, I've decided what kind of engineering I want to do because of coming to this open day. He hadn't realised that there were necessarily different types and what pathway he'd want to do. And then going to see, the whole warehouse in action, seeing things being made him realise that he wanted to be on that doing sort of mechanical side. So it's really worth going along to those. The other question I sometimes get asked is whether somebody can do an apprenticeship remotely or online. And this tends to be asked by people who were already in employment and are looking to upskill. And I think COVID obviously had an impact and moved a lot of roles to be remote. So a lot of marketing roles, for example. It depends on the training provider. It's worth talking to them to see what their delivery model is and whether they offer online or whether it's in person. So that's just another question to ask if that is something that is important for you.
No, thank you, Rachel. That's a really good point. And just to kind of wrap up what we were all just discussing there, I think the key takeaway for me was it's never too young to network. So the careers fairs that young people are going to, the employers that they have into school, the work experience that they're doing, you know, if they're going out this year and work experience or next year, keep building on those contacts, because it might be that in a couple of years' time they're going to start an apprenticeship and actually in carpentry and they've done some work experience in that sector. So keep hold of those contacts and keep building on your network, even at a young age. It's really important. And Rachel, are there any other questions, or are we just
No,
about
I
to...
think it's last chance saloon if anybody wants to ask anything very quickly before we wrap up. But as we said at the beginning, this has been recorded. So if obviously we can't see all the people that are attending, but if you happen to be in touch with learners or people that might find this useful, we can share the link to the recording so that people can watch it back. There's a question being typed at the moment, so we'll just pause for that. Oh, that's nice. Thank you, Phil. It's been a very informative session, apparently. So that's very nice to hear. Thank you for that comment.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. And if I think we will have the recording. So if there's any of you that would like the recording, if you want to pop your email address into the chat, I'm sure we can fathom a way to get that out to everybody. So just finally then, thank you so much for joining us. And last plug, if you feel that an apprenticeship might be the right next step for somebody that you know, please do join us at Apprentifest on Tuesday the 11th. Tickets are free. Rachel's posted the link in the chat.
Yes.
It would be great to see you there.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
so much.
Thank you.